Okay, so this time around, it's talking about the SEI, the ISFP from Alpha Quadra. I haven't actually done a video on this type or any sort of basic breakdown. Um, Whatever, so we're after it now. Um, so, well, actually, before we get started, hopefully some of you have either you understand the structure already or you can look it up, Google it, write it down next to you so you can just maybe follow along, you do. I like doing little things like this for my videos, little breakdown, whatever, so you can kind of see it. Okay, so SEIs. So this is kind of a type that I'd say originally, some time ago, I was not really a big fan. I was kind of, but it's a type that I've come to actually really like and appreciate a lot more as time has gone on. I've gotten older and so on. It's not a type I'm really supposed to like. In fact, this is actually my conflictor, technically. Um, Yet I don't find that I really conflict with them per se. Not always, anyway. So every once in a while, yeah, but not really. Um, and that goes into conflictor types, and I don't think conflictor types are always a type you're going to be really having a fight with. Okay, but anyway, let's get on to SEI. So like I said, a type that I've kind of come to like and appreciate more as time has passed. They are led by SI and FE. Okay, this is their ego stack functions. SI and FE is very much about creating positive atmosphere. This is also in line with alpha quadra types. That alphas are known as being the youthful, let's have a good time, let's all be together on this, let's all get an equal say, be very democratic, have fun, don't take everything too seriously, just kind of be a little lighthearted and enjoy life. It's the general attitude and theme with alphas, right? Now, the two types that really facilitate this a lot is SEI, is one of them, and your ESE, it's the ESFJ version. So SEIs are really good at creating a nice, comfortable, harmonious environment, especially by providing a good physical space where things are aesthetic and pretty and organized. The furniture looks good, the house environment looks good, the party environment looks good. Whatever environment you're in, it looks good. This can also translate into the SEI, the person themselves being very aesthetic and looks good. They're dressed well. They are, they look good. Their hair looks good. Their makeup looks good. Like things like that. Like they appreciate beauty a lot. This is probably one of the types that I have noticed probably more than any other type really appreciates beauty. Things just looking pretty, themselves looking pretty and well-to-do, other people looking to do, all that kind of stuff. May go into professions and things or hobbies and stuff that is also about beauty, art, photography, fashion. In medical side, I know people who work in like plastic surgery type of things like that, or other dermatology areas or stuff that is very much about the aesthetic appearance of somebody. So they very much are interested in things looking nice and being comfortable and pleasant and beautiful. They're very, very good at that. It's one of the areas I've learned to appreciate them for. A lot of that is the SI dominance at work, being mindful of the sensory environment around and how it feels, how it's comfortable, and providing for that sensory environment. The FE also comes in behind that, so it's SIFE, where FE is they're sociable. They do like to interact with a lot of different sorts of people, maintain that positive, harmonious mood. This is not a sort of person that is very picky when it comes to these are my people, those are not my people. I don't want these people involved. I do want these people involved. No, they tend to be a lot more welcoming. Let everybody kind of have their say. Let everybody come in. They're not about pushing people away. this is one of the reasons why this is a type that also tends to get along very well with so many people. This is a type that rarely has enemies per se, or rarely has fights and disputes with people. Doesn't happen much, and if they do get into a little spat or something with somebody, it's going to be probably short-lived, and it's over and move on. This is usually a very likable type of person, and this is kind of their superpower. This is one of the reasons why I've kind of come to enjoy this type more. The appreciation, the aesthetics, the ability to get along well with everybody, to be very likable, to be a type that doesn't really talk badly, doesn't say negative things about other people much. You know, they might slip in a comment here, there about somebody or something that they're not liking or jiving with or whatever, but that's it. It's a little comment slipped in there. It's kind of light and mild, whatever, and they move on. They're not there to bash the hell out of somebody, or really go into detail about why somebody sucks or whatever. They don't really like doing that, and they will divert conversations too. Sometimes they'll see that the conversation's turning into a shit on somebody kind of thing, and they'll make a comment and just like, okay, it's like they understand where you're coming from and what your issue is with whomever or whatever, and they will kind of like divert it back to like, okay, let's get back to the nice positive stuff going on here. Let's move it along. They don't want to stay in that kind of negative space. This is a type that can range widely in terms of how they use their FE, feeling, influence, social influence. Some SEIs can be quite, they can be fairly extroverted in the classic sense of the word, as in like just being talkative and going around dealing with people. Some can be much more on that introverted, quiet, shyer side, right? There's a bit of a range there. But you do notice when you take them out of their normal environments that they're used to doing, and you kind of take them out into the world, you start introducing them to new tasks and things they're not used to doing, they become less extroverted. You see them kind of like take a bit more of a step back, be a little more shyish, a little bit more, reserved in a way. Not that they're hiding from people, they just kind of look like more of that supporting person, letting other people kind of drive the action and do a lot of talking and whatever. And in a way, you can see that as a way to separate them a little bit more from like the ESEs, where ESEs, more often than not, even when you take them out into new environments and things they're not used to, they're still super social and talking to everybody and like letting their presence be felt. So you can see that as a way to distinguish them. Important to note, with this sort of a little bit of shyness, a little bit of introversion, very feeling type, very concerned with how others are feeling, how they feel, how they fit in, etc. This is a type that, especially with women, can feel very, very sensitive, very emotionally sensitive people. So they can often think that they are an INFP or an INFJ or one of these other types, that they're sitting there going, I think I'm very emotional and very sensitive, and I'm very, this or that. So they may at times start to really wonder, am I one of these other types? Okay. They're going to have a lot in common with IEIs because they share a lot of functions in the middle. So that's another reason why they may be thinking I'm very sensitive and emotional, and I feel like I do have a lot in common with an IEI, so maybe I'm an IEI. And it's like, you might not be, All right, so that's something to keep in mind. The sensitivity tends to be there. If they're male, you may see less of that emotionality, less of that sensitivity, because gender does matter. But the interests are still kind of there. That interest for the softer side of life and taking, appreciating the family or group dynamics, maybe the friends and everybody kind of getting along well, still being a little more that supporting character rather than the person who's up front, having some interest still in the aesthetics, in the house, in the nice car, or the nice this and that, whatever, right? Okay, so that's the SIFE. That's their ego block. That's what makes them unique, a unique talent that they typically have. Now, if we move on to the other stuff, okay, what are they really bad at? You go into their super ego block. So this is a type that usually they're not very good at being extremely pragmatic and thinking about long-term issues or broad issues. The thing I tend to notice the most is they're not as focused on what are the big picture issues going on in the world that need to happen. This is probably the most standout thing to me that I've noticed. They're not a type that is very focused on what's the political situation going on in the world, who's running for what, who's doing this, how is this economic thing over here working and meant to work, how does the International Monetary Fund and stuff work, what's going on in Uganda, something over there, what's the military situation in Ukraine and this and that. They're usually people that tend to focus more on their immediate environment, i.e. meaning their household, their family, their school stuff, their work stuff, their own bills and things like that. What directly affects them and the people around them. They will do those things and do them well. Take care of those things, but they're not usually that interested in trying to pay attention to the global, bigger picture of what else is happening. They generally either have no interest in that, or they have some interest, but it's just not something that they tend to think about and focus on very much, and would rather let others kind of deal with this sort of stuff and and talk about it, whatever. I've seen certain types that will straight out admit to that, that they're just like, I don't, I know there's difficult things in the world. I know there's problems and bad things going on in the world and difficult issues that need resolving, but that's just not, that's not for me to deal with. I'll let somebody else deal with that stuff. Like, I don't, I'm dealing with my thing right here. And some of them will be very honest like that. Some will go on about saying, well, I've given it a shot to pay attention to political issues and this and that, but I just don't care. I can't be bothered to get into that stuff. So you'll see that happen. Could be philosophy as well. This is very where the NI stuff is kicking in, right? And the NI, it's about really the abstraction, right? It's about stuff that is not happening here now in your immediate environment. It's about these broader global issues. What is the meaning of life? Where are we going with things? What is the political situation of someone? These are all abstract ideas that are big and broad and are not happening directly to you or in your immediate environment. So these are things that they're usually not thinking about. As I was trying to say a second ago, a lot of philosophical talk, existentialism and meaning of life, these are not things they're usually thinking about or too concerned with either. They might dabble in it as a dinner table conversation with some people and, discuss a few things, whatever, because they're being pleasant. They're doing the SIFE. They're having a nice conversation and letting ideas kind of flow. But it's generally not something that they really care all that much about. Now, the real weak spot, the vulnerable spot, is TE, the pragmatism. They're generally a type that does not concern themselves very much with what is pragmatic. This is how to get things done. This is how things get done. And this is how you do it in the most effective, efficient way, regardless of any other opinions or outside circle. It doesn't matter. This is how you practically do stuff. Particularly, being pragmatic, the TE pragma, also means understanding what things require, what things can be done, and that we have the time, the money, the resources, the expertise to do it. Right? There are some things that they're nice and they're ideal. It would be great in an ideal world to do it, but if you're being pragmatic, you realize that you can't actually implement this. We just don't have the resources. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. We don't have the energy for that. There's a lack of interest, whatever. Right? A very pragmatic TE person is mindful of those things. Okay. That's an area where SEIs, they're just not paying attention to that pragma, just like the IEIs. So this could manifest in a lot of ways. A classic one may be, all this attention to the SI, this paying attention to what is aesthetic, what is pleasing, what's nice and whatever. That's great, but it's not very pragmatic, is it? Right? Sometimes making some things look really beautiful and putting all this time and energy and money into the interior design of something, it's nice, but is it practical? Is it necessary? Do you really need to do this? What's its overall impact on stuff? Well, maybe not. Maybe there isn't any. How practical is it to go into plastic surgery just for the sake of beautiful things? You could argue it's not practical. It's a complete luxury, right? So things like that, ways of thinking about it in those terms. So it could be a type that's not always so great with money. Some of them are. Some of them are not. They're throwing it around, trying to, again, beautify stuff. I know somebody who, it's like a running joke that every time you go over to their place, it almost seems like they might have a new couch or a new table set or something that's just better. It's like, is this like the 5th couch you bought in the last 6 months? Like, what is this? How much money are you tossing around here? Okay, so it's a practical side. As said, when you combine the T, E, and I, this is not a type that's really thinking about how do we solve the world's problems. And that's simple. How are we solving that? They're usually not interested. Where you want to go? All right. So moving on to other things that they like but are not necessarily great at. The super id block. You're going to be dealing with TI and NE. Okay. So TI is in the mobilizing position. You may notice that with them. They have a certain world view of things. They have a way of understanding how things are should work. This is kind of what I've been raised on. This is the structure of how we live life. Our belief system could be a religious system. More often than not, it's like, look, this is just what my family's into. This is kind of how we've grown up and how we tend to view our relationships and view family and all this other stuff, right? And they have a kind of a nice little structure to themselves on how this is supposed to be done. They may have a way of organizing their environment, organizing the SI stuff. This is how everything looks nice and how everything should be organized in a certain specific way and the way you should do it each time. It could be in the sense of even their professional work or something like that. They have a system that they've created for themselves on this is how I like to go about doing stuff. This is the way I found things to work the best. This is the kind of information I know works and the way I like going about it. And they generally are pretty consistent on that. They can be kind of stubbornly consistent on this stuff. So if you try to introduce new methods, new information, again, the pragmatic, you try to say, look, this is a better way to do it because of these reasons. They may stubbornly go, I'm going to stick to what I do. I'm going to stick to the way I like to do it because now you're going to mess up my approach to things, and that's uncomfortable, and I don't like all that extra stuff. So they can be stubborn. They can be stubborn on their belief system on this is how you go about family life and raising things, and don't do that. They can be stubborn on this is how I like my garden. This is where I put everything like this and that and the other, and you're messing up my system by coming over here and chopping on those little plants over there. So this is where that stubbornness can really show itself. Any as the suggestive function. So this is a type that they're not normally very curious on their own, right? So this is not a type that you see going around looking up all kinds of different information, talking about various subjects, trying to really explore a wide range of different concepts and ideas. But they kind of like it when somebody else does it for them, when somebody else can bring it to them. So this might be, in a classic sense, that person who likes having a significant other, like an ILE, that does enjoy dabbling in a wide range of topics and subjects and can maybe even propose alternatives to things and kind of say, you know what, maybe you could try, have you thought of this? Have you thought maybe what that person really meant was this? maybe that person is really about that kind of thing. Or maybe, there's other cultures that view things in a different way, and this is sort of how their belief system is structured and so on, and they go about this. And then you can explain kind of like how they do it. The SEIs can really enjoy this sort of creative explanation, this way of looking at things differently, seeing the other side of stuff, seeing, learning about another culture and another approach to stuff, or, oh wow, another alternative way to set things up. Okay. As long as it's done in a very relaxed, again, that alpha style, we're just being curious and discussing stuff, they may really enjoy that. It's a type that can enjoy going out to explore new things, but usually in a more calm kind of way, because they're SI, not SE. And I find this is a type that can be very artistic. Very artistic. They can have a very artistic interest to them, where they like to do painting, they like to do sculpting, they like to do drawing, creative works, whatever, things that are pretty, and express themselves in a creative, artsy kind of way. Photography, seeing that a lot. Again, drawing and painting, all that. They can really enjoy this. Could be a type that's like, hey, let's do something different. Why, let's go on that date and we'll do the wine and painting thing. Drink wine, eat some food, and we paint, and that's our date night. Yay. Still calm, still relaxing, but you're enjoying kind of a little new artistic-y sort of thing to do. Game nights, dressing up. Let's dress up and have a good time on this thing, and we're going to be creative about how we dress ourselves up and do things. So that's another way that any kind of can manifest. So SE stuff. So SE is the ignored function. SE is, since they like SI, they're ignoring the SE. So they're not interested in seeing the world as a combative place where you need to be constantly clashing with other people. They're not interested in high intensity environments, doing highly competitive and intense sports or activities, usually. There are some SEIs that do competitive sports when they're in middle school, high school, whatever, and so they kind of grow up on it, or they have a family and the family kind of does little sports stuff, so they kind of grow up on it and they do some competitive things. But generally speaking, this is not their approach to life. They're not trying to clash with others. They're not trying to assert their will on others or the environment. Most, as I said, do not usually engage in a lot of high intensity, highly competitive, like, again, sports or games or things like that, where they're usually not interested in this. Okay, they'll do it, they'll play along, but they still always with this attitude, this vibe of like, winning is not that important. We're just here to have a good time. We didn't win. I didn't win. That's fine. We had a good time. Right? They're not one of those types that's like super trying to beat you at paintball. It's not important to them. They, again, like maintaining their more comfort zone type of things. This is what I find comfortable at a nice, relaxing pace. Let's do the wine and painting thing. That's more fun and relaxing and like whatever. Let's play board games, or let's play some other little activities, do some karaoke, whatever. But it's not about competition. It's not about asserting oneself. Okay, they will usually use SE only when their comfortable environments and their peaceful environments have been disrupted by someone or something else. Somebody's being an asshole, somebody's just not cooperating, things are going wrong, whatever, and now that peace and tranquility has been disrupted, has been ruined. Then they will get upset, and then they will carve things out for themselves and say, okay, I've had enough, I'm not doing this, and you'll see that assertiveness kick in. And it'll be short-lived. They'll get over it very quick and kind of restore back to the calm, tranquil environment and being nice. But that's about it with the SE. It really is. As I said, this is usually described as a very gentle, calm type. It's sometimes almost difficult to see the male versions of it because it's often, this is a type that just seems so feminine in many ways. Okay, sorry for the males out there who might be listening for this. I do know some male versions that, like, you know what they've done in their background, and then it's tough as nails. But it's not what they're interested in doing. It's not their focus, right? I do know SEIs that are military people. They are actively serving military people who, run around with guns and shoot things. Okay? But you can tell they're gentle kinds of people. They're not, they're just doing their job, and that's what their job happens to require. FI, it's the last one. So FI is the demonstrative function. So it's very strong. They're very good at it, but it's not their valued element. They value FE more. They value more of the group dynamics, influencing the group more. Not as concerned with really paying a lot of attention to individuals' characteristics, and particularly not. Let me rephrase that. The id block, the last block, they have SE and FI. So you're looking at SE and FI together. This is a type that is not very interested in asserting themselves on their relationships, good or bad. So if they like certain people, they're not necessarily asserting themselves on them. And if they don't like people, they're not necessarily asserting their will on those people, saying, I don't like you, get the hell away from me. I can't stand that person. They're not doing that at all. They're ignoring this whole bit down here. They do know who they like. They do know how to establish close relationships with people, maintain close, intimate relations. They do it very well. They can just as easily talk to a group of people and just be social, butterfly, talking to multiple people, and then they can have one of these one-on-ones going on. See this a lot, like at a group gathering, dinner party kind of thing. SEI can work the room and then easily start having these little sidebar conversations with people that can be more very personalized to that person, very understanding of how that person views things, how that person views the world, etc. They can be very understanding of all this stuff. Not a type that's very judgmental over people. They're much more willing and open and accepting of different viewpoints, different styles, different people's things, and they don't make any real issues about it. Again, very, very good with people. Said they're alpha quadra style, blah, blah, blah. In closing, as I said before, it's a type I've learned to like. It's meant to be kind of more my conflictor because they have SI and I don't really care about SI stuff. But I have come to appreciate different things about them, like their, again, attention to aesthetics, being very good at these things, very good at dressing well, looking the part, very well at maintaining things, and creating nice, happy, harmonious environments and so on with people. Very good at being a hostess and putting these kinds of family gathering things together. Very attentive and very, very good at those things. So I have kind of learned to appreciate that over time. It's a type that I have found to be rather attractive in like a romantic sort of sense. I find them rather attractive initially. Not that it really works out per se. I guess that's where the conflictor comes in. And I suppose theoretically, I mean, like in search of my ESI dual, whatever. And this type looks a lot like ESIs. They share many of the same strong elements, but in a different order. So that might be one of the reasons why I find SEIs kind of attractive, and I tend to just interact with a lot of them. A type that's very difficult not to like. Very difficult not to like, or at least be pleasant with, is the point. They're a type that gets along so well with everybody. How do you not? So those are some other points. Hopefully good enough. I don't know what I missed out on, but maybe some people in the comment section will go on to that. This could be your type. Again, if you think that you're IEI, or you think that you're an EII, or you think that you're ESI, all of these are possible combinations, whatever, where you may in fact be an SEI. You really have to check what are your quadra values. How well do you fit in alpha values versus some of the other values? Yeah, so that's your SEIs.